West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Well, there is some very important news tonight on my email. I just got an email from Donald Trump. It's from Donald J. Trump. It says it is from the official email account of Donald Trump. It says, Lawrence, directed to me, Mar-a-Lago was raided. In fact, take a look at this email. We can put it up on the screen for you. We just got it. It says Mar-a-Lago was raided. The radical left is corrupt. We must return the power to the people. Please rush in a donation immediately to publicly stand with me against this never-ending witch hunt. And it has my name there. It even suggests a donation. He thinks I'm good for $45. That's what his email list managers tell him. And there's a deadline. Deadline for my contribution of $45 is immediately. I gotta drop everything and contribute. I gotta say, I've received a bunch of these Trump fundraising emails over the years at one of my many email addresses. That is the shortest one. That is the shortest, simplest one. My house got raided. Send me money. And once again, Donald Trump makes American political history, presidential history, with that email. An email about my house got raided by the FBI. So please give me a political contribution. No one's ever done that before. That is pure Donald Trump. Well, nothing happened today. Donald Trump broke the news last night about the FBI raid on his Florida home in the desperate hope that it would provoke coast-to-coast outrage by Trump supporters, a national uprising by Trump supporters, but nothing happened. There was no uprising. On social media last night, one empty-headed Trump supporter got a lot of attention with a tweet to his 1.9 million followers on Twitter saying, "Tomorrow is war, sleep well." They are still sleeping. The 1.9 million Twitter followers who may have seen that tweet slept very, very well, and none of them, not one of them, went to war today, including the guy who wrote the tweet. Outside Donald Trump's home in Florida, there were more members of the news media today than Trump supporters. A couple of dozen Trump supporters showed up throughout the course of the day. None of them were ready for war, but they did enjoy talking on TV.
Yeah, well, we came out to support Trump. I mean, we think it's awful what happened yesterday. We think it's abuse of power.
That guy's not going to war for Donald Trump. Justin's not going to war for Donald Trump. Hold a flag for a while. That's about it. The Washington Post interviewed Trump supporters outside of Mar-a-Lago today, and they found one woman who traveled all of 5 miles from her home to wave an American flag near Donald Trump's home. Remember now, here is some numerical perspective to what you're seeing on that little bridge near Mar-a-Lago. There are 5.6 million Trump voters just in the state of Florida. Millions of them live within an hour's drive of Mar-a-Lago. And all of them, virtually all of them, stayed home today. Did nothing. 5.6 million Trump voters in Florida did absolutely nothing after Donald Trump's home was searched by FBI agents in plain clothes yesterday who obtained the search warrant from a Florida federal judge. America was not torn apart by that search warrant, as right-wing social media would want you to believe, and as the Fox propaganda channel would want you to believe. There is no outrage. There is no uprising. If you take the TV cameras away, there will be 0 Trump supporters outside of Mar-a-Lago. 74 million Trump voters today did absolutely nothing in response to the FBI search of Donald Trump's home. 74 million Trump voters in this country, and they did nothing. Social media and the news media will continue to distort the public reaction to the federal investigation of Donald Trump by amplifying wildly tweets from people who don't mean a single word they say, and by sticking microphones and cameras in the faces of the microscopically tiny group of individuals who have raced to the TV news cameras in Mar-a-Lago. And the news media will steadfastly ignore the 5.6 million Trump voters in Florida who are staying home and doing nothing, and the 74 million Trump voters in this country who are staying home and doing nothing about the raid on Donald Trump's home. Donald Trump, who measures his very self-worth by the size of his crowds, has to be crushed by the, in effect, 0 turnout of a crowd anywhere. A crowd in public support of him. That is not a crowd that those TV cameras are aiming at down at Mar-a-Lago. There is plenty of room between each one of those individuals who has traveled apparently a very short distance to be there. No crowd at all. 0 crowd. Nowhere in America is there a crowd today or tonight for Donald Trump. Donald Trump appears to have the support of people like the leader of the Republicans in the House of Representatives, Kevin McCarthy. But that is obviously just political posturing that, when quoted by the news media, simply turns the news media into a conduit of Republican lies. But those Republican office holders do enjoy talking on TV about their support for Donald Trump. Donald Trump is probably, can't prove this, there's no journalistic proof of this, but he's probably as terrified tonight as anyone else whose home has ever been searched by, as Donald Trump described it, a large group of FBI agents. But what American journalism produces is a quote from an unnamed aide to Donald Trump that Donald Trump believes he will be politically helped by the FBI raid. Now, that is the news media quoting an unnamed liar about a known liar. Everyone who works for Donald Trump lies. So every time a Trump aide, named or unnamed, is quoted, a liar is being quoted by the news media. And when that Trump aide is telling you what Donald Trump thinks, that is a liar telling you what a liar thinks. It has 0 journalistic value. The best approach to this story of the Trump search warrant is to ignore the political bombast of the Kevin McCarthys and absolutely ignore the empty threats and boasts of social media. Social media is a mirage to begin with, but right-wing social media, that is a complete nuthouse of madness and emptiness. Ignore all of that and notice that 5.6 million Trump voters in Florida have not done a single thing because of the FBI search of Donald Trump's home. None of them changed their schedules today. And 74 million Trump supporters nationwide, including the guy on Twitter who said war was going to start today, have done absolutely nothing. The war guy himself did absolutely nothing today. But he did get a massive amount of attention to his tweet on television today. And virtually all of that attention took his war tweet seriously. The only thing we can take seriously in this story is the criminal investigation of Donald Trump now underway in Merrick Garland's Justice Department, with FBI agents working under the direction of an FBI director who was appointed by Donald Trump, searching Donald Trump's home yesterday, provoking him to complain in writing last night. They even broke into my safe! Exclamation point.
It is Wednesday, the 10th of August of 2022, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Will no one rid us of these meddlesome priests? Well, speaking of the good kind of meddlesome, Trump apparently is still under, what shall we say, an edict? Yeah. And I will take Lawrence's argument at the top that, by percentages, of course, there's only a small number of folk who are rushing to Trump's aid. And I guess you can look at the limited amount of donations that, well, I'll say, put quotes around limited, that he's been getting with his entreaties for "send me cash, my place was raided." And I'll give it to these propagandists that work at the Trump shop. They know how to jump on a narrative. We play by the rules. And when I say we, I mean representative democracy, the rule of law. that we. And crooks, by their very nature, I mean, the reason they're crooks is because representative democracy and the rule of law is just something in the way. And when something's in the way, you either bash it down, you move around it, you move under it, you go over it, but it is not an impediment. And once it becomes an impediment, oh, the whining, my God. And it is quite amazing, though, because I will say, it's not all 73 million people who voted for Trump who are willing to go out there and take up arms and kill their fellow Americans. But a million of them is still a lot of people. Let's just put it that way. Whatever a third is of 73 million, that's still a lot of people. And a third of those, of that 73 million people, pretty much are saying, yeah, we'll do it. But you never know, because when push comes to shove, you know how Americans are. Let somebody else do it. I got to go shopping. That's why when, one of the worst terrorist attacks that ever happened on U.S. soil, how did people get out of their doldrums? They were encouraged to go shop. Oh, the threat level is only an orange. Go out and shop. Everybody talked about how great it was to go shopping. Oh, we're free again. Then we had the pandemic and everybody wanted to go shop. At least that's what they were told to do. That's how you can tell you're back to normal. We can go shop. The threat level is only wear a mask inside. Okay, great. Ah, boy. Takes some brainwashing, though, to convince someone that Trump is a manly man, anointed by God, to hand out tax breaks to everybody. And what else? I don't know. I just don't understand it. These people are so enthralled of this guy. And it makes me wonder. Now, you can't say that everybody who watched The Apprentice was brainwashed into thinking that Trump was some kind of great mogul. Okay? And that the Trump company was some sort of behemoth. But there was enough of them. I think there was some sort of weird, I don't know, frequency that activated the hypothalamus when you watched the thing. Because I don't know if just listening to it was enough. Now, I got to tell you, I never watched The Apprentice. I could not stand Trump. I couldn't stand Trump from way back. Back in the 70s. He and his dad, I don't know why it wasn't big news to a bunch of people, everywhere. It seemed like big news in Los Angeles when I was a little kid. Or, well, I guess it wasn't so little anymore. It was 78. My God, my son was born then. But I remember that because, I still had this sort of like punkish hippie kind of attitude. And Trump represented, well, blind consumerism, greed, all of the attributes that I hated that I kind of thought was going to bring down America. Not that, the hippie-ish part was going to be any great thing. I'd already gone through that. Now, I have to say, I didn't align all hippies with people on the commune who were totally lazy and didn't want to go out there and, at least pull some weed so we can have some food. You can't blame them for, I don't know, they were used to being coddled to, apparently. And, Daddy took their credit cards away. And we weren't that kind of a commune where we said, give us your credit cards and we'll call it even. No, there were certain expectations that people would be people and, help their fellow neighbor. Well, as it turns out, there would be a core of people who took it seriously and they'd keep working away while everybody else is like, oh, yeah, well, I want my tax break when I get older, so shut up. So, it seems now that the reason that there is a sizable number who just look at Trump as being the embodiment of God on earth is that they probably think that maybe one day they might get to be a crooked, larcenous fascist that can run America. Okay. Greed, blind consumerism, all the things that I hated that was certain to bring down America, and look where we are. All right. And what is peace, love, and understanding but a commodity too? It turned into an advertisement. My God. Everything is for sale. Love is for sale. Peace is for sale. Understanding. Jeez. It's all for sale. And I guess if you don't have, an audience, or shall we say a customer, to buy it, it won't be available. Okay. Well, I'm not going to blame it all on economics or whatever it is that causes us to be social animals that want to eat each other. But something's got to, we got to have a Rubicon, I think. A Rubicon that we just, that's it. And apparently, the slaughter of 6-year-olds over and over and over is not enough of a Rubicon. Apparently not. I think the only Rubicon that will absolutely be the one that causes us all to say, yeah, that's enough, is when we can't go shopping anymore. All right. Well, we got that going for us. which is nice, isn't it? Hey, we do have a curated show for you today, and we could rant on and on, which we like to do because, it feels so good, doesn't it? Maybe not. But we do have a curated part of the show because, there's a certain part of order. And, just sweeping the floors being the most important thing you can be doing at that moment. And it can calm one. At least it calms me. Let's get into what we have offered up here for you in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy on this fine Smothered Benedict Wednesdays, and that's a warning too. Companies are increasing investment as Biden signed the CHIPS and Science Act, boosting the U.S. semiconductor industry. Ramsey County, Minnesota settled a racial discrimination suit against the sheriff's office for running a whites-only jail to guard Derek Chauvin. Wow. Just don't say race is involved. And the PGA Tour's FedEx Cup playoffs will take place without any of the golfers who defected to the Saudi-funded Bonesaw Invitational Series. That's what I call it. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where the United States is returning 30 looted Bronze Age antiquities to Cambodia. And Nagasaki paid tribute to the victims of the U.S. atomic bombing 77 years ago, yesterday, August 9th. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln, who will be attending and covering Netroots Nation 22 in Pittsburgh this year. First time in 2 years for in-person meetups, so everyone will be taking care because you know why. And thank you, Kelly, for everything that you do. If you would look across the page from that chat room link to the left of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, near the bottom there, you'll notice the link to our Patreon page. And if you could become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio and help us pay our bills, boy, that would really be helpful. If you could afford an espresso-type coffee drink, for instance, and if you could send those funds our way once a month, it puts a big dent in these bills, because inflation, I guess that's what it's called, or what we like to say around here, price gouging. Oh no, our vendors and providers don't price gouge. But anyway, prices are going up again. Can you believe them? Anyway, thank you for your generosity in putting a dent in those bills. My God. Anyway, it helps us fulfill our civic duty as a bulwark against this, well, there's no other word for it, fascist takeover of everything that's pure and good. Or, as we like to call it, representative democracy here in America and around the world. They're trying to take that away from us, and we won't let them. And thank you for your generosity in allowing us to fulfill that civic duty as the founders originally intended so many, many years ago. It's right there, in their own words, too. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, you can do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that. Thanks, Tom. Follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's 10 minutes before showtime, so you can find those show notes and links by following me on Twitter, because at least the general page is there for you, and the specific ones at some point, at least when the pod comes up, at least. If you would like to follow the show on Twitter, it is so simple, kind of. Go to Cookbook West. Yes, at Cookbook West. And pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes. Really, wherever podcasts can be found, and the deep archive of the last 11 years of Netroots Radio can be found at the Internet Archive at archive.org. All right, this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is out of the American Independent by the great Oliver Willis. President Joe Biden yesterday, Tuesday, signed the Chips and Science Act, which will utilize $280 billion to increase American competitiveness in science and technology, especially against China. The legislation allocates $52 billion to boost U.S.-based semiconductor manufacturing. Before Biden signed the bill into law, the companies Micron Technology and Qualcomm announced a combined total of more than $40 billion in investments in domestic chip manufacturing, specifically citing grants and funding provided by the new law. At the bill signing, Biden referred to the recent passage of the Inflation Reduction Act in the Senate and the passage of the Chips and Science Act as evidence that, quote, "We met the moment at this inflection point in history," end quote, Biden said. And continuing with the quote, "A moment when we bet on ourselves, believed in ourselves, and recaptured the story, the spirit, and the soul of this nation. We are the United States of America, a singular place of possibilities. I'm now going to sign the Chips and Science Act, and once again, I promise you, we're leading the world again for the next decades." Of course, not if the Republicans can help it. On Tuesday, yesterday, Boise, Idaho-based computer memory and storage company Micron Technology announced it would be investing $40 billion over the next decade in memory manufacturing in the United States. Don't say that out loud, memory manufacturing. What do you mean by that? Micron described its investment as the largest in memory manufacturing in U.S. history and forecast that it would create 40,000 jobs, including 5,000 jobs in technical and operational roles at the company. Qualcomm, which is based in San Diego, announced that it would be spending an additional $4.2 billion worth of semiconductor chips from Global Foundries, a manufacturer based in New York, more than doubling the previous commitment between the two companies, resulting in a total of $7.4 billion in purchases through 2028. Holly Bailey of the Washington Post brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. A Minnesota county agreed to pay $1.5 million to 8 minority correctional officers who sued after they said only white employees were allowed to guard or interact with Derek Chauvin at the jail where he was held after his arrest in the killing of George Floyd. The Ramsey County Board of Commissioners voted unanimously to settle a lawsuit claiming racial discrimination by current and former employees at the Ramsey County Adult Detention Center in St. Paul, where the former Minneapolis police officer surrendered after being charged in the 2020 killing. Under settlement of the terms, The county agreed to pay the officers an amount of roughly between $75,000 and $250,000 apiece to settle claims of discrimination, a hostile work environment, and mental distress. They had said that the then superintendent at the jail, who is white, ordered employees of color to segregate on a separate floor from Chauvin and block them from doing their jobs because of their race. Chauvin is white, and Floyd, the man Chauvin was convicted of murdering, was black. As part of the settlement approved yesterday, Tuesday, Ramsey County admitted no wrongdoing. But after voting to approve the settlement, board members issued a formal apology to the corrections officers for what one described as a, quote, racist act by the Ramsey County Sheriff's Office, which oversees operations at the jail, and criticized the department for continued failure in leadership and lack of accountability for its handling of the May 29, 2020 incident. No one should ever have questioned your ability to perform your job based on the color of your skin, Ramsey County Board Chair Trista Masta Castillo said. The 8 officers, including 4 who still work for Ramsey County, filed a state civil rights complaint in June of 2020 and later sued in state district court over allegations of racial discrimination. The officers said they were on regular duty at the jail when Chauvin was taken into custody after days of fiery unrest across the Twin Cities following Floyd's death on May 25th. As the jail prepared for Chauvin's arrival, a supervisor pulled all officers of color from their regular duties, according to the lawsuit, and asked them to report to the 3rd floor of the facility, away from the 5th floor where Chauvin would be held in a secluded cell. All were replaced by white officers. Rick Mays, also of the Washington Post, brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The PGA Tour's FedEx playoffs will take place without any of the players who defected to the Saudi-funded Live Golf Invitational Series. We call it the Bonesaw Invitational, so that's what it will be called from here on out. It's right there in the Netroots Radio Style Manual. A federal judge denied the bid by 3 golfers, Taylor Gooch, Matt Jones, and Hudson Swafford, seeking spots in this week's St. Jude Championship, which begins tomorrow, Thursday, in Memphis. The trio had sought a temporary restraining order that would allow them to play in the season-ending FedEx Cup playoffs, the 3-tournament competition that includes the top 125 golfers in season-long standings. In ruling against the players, U.S. District Judge Beth Labson Freeman said they failed to demonstrate their exclusion from the PGA Tour's season-ending event amounted to irreparable harm, noting that they stand to earn more money by competing in the Bonesaw Golf Series. The evidence shows almost without a doubt they will be earning more than they would have made and could have reasonably been expected to make in a reasonable period of time under the tournaments, Freeman said. The temporary restraining order request was part of a federal antitrust lawsuit filed last week by 11 golfers who contend their careers were hurt when the PGA Tour punished them for signing on with a competing Bonesaw Golf, the Saudi-backed startup that lured away some of the sport's biggest names with 8- and 9-figure contracts. A Bonesaw spokesman said in a statement yesterday, Tuesday, "We are disappointed that Taylor Gooch, Hudson Swafford, and Matt Jones won't be allowed to play golf. No one gains by banning golfers from playing." That's what they all say when they use Bonesaws. Tuesday's hearing was narrowly focused on the temporary restraining order request, not the broader antitrust issues, but Freeman's ruling and her comments pertaining to irreparable harm amount to an important legal win for the PGA Tour. The judge had access to some of the golfers' contract details, which were redacted in court filings, and said the players clearly understood what they were foregoing by signing with Bonesaw Golf. Well, that brings us to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. This week, eating your own tail as an appetizer. In Vengeance, director, writer, and star B.J. Novak plays Ben Manalowitz, a New York Jewish writer who wants to get his big ideas about America into a big-time hit podcast. So, this Ben gets a call from the brother of one of the many women Ben hooks up with but barely remembers. She has OD'd. And believing that Ben was her serious boyfriend, the brother guilts him down to her small hometown in West Texas. Once there, Ben BS's his way through meeting her family and attending her funeral and hearing their wild theories about her murder. And in an act of selfishness painful to watch, Ben figures that their stories could be his story. Now, of course, we've seen this movie before. Local Hero, The Englishman Who Went Up a Hill But Came Down a Mountain, Doc Hollywood, etc. Jaded city person heads to the country where he/she, at first, looks down upon the local yokels. But while questing, they're surprised by the townfolk's self-awareness. And their homey values fill our protagonist's emptiness. It's a formula that makes darling movies. But you step back and you realize that they're all written and filmed by those kinds of jaded coastal city people. And their treatment of the just folks, though affectionate, is ultimately condescending, as our yokels' lives and stories, like those of so many marginalized groups, really are only important as far as they help the self-centered protagonists. And for a movie like Vengeance, which talks about our societal disassociation that's paired with our drive towards celebrity, both conditions facilitated by recording and communication technology, it's hard not to look to how the movie comments on itself, and thus hard not to find it disingenuous. I mean, what could be more all about you than writing, directing, and starring as someone who has to learn that it's not all about him? And though Vengeance knows this, can films like it ever ultimately escape being what they purport to revile? Here's your twist. I kinda think it does. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Hey kids and parents, it's back to school time. As you shop for school supplies and get ready for class, make sure you have emergency plans in place. Did you know that emergency preparedness plays a major role in school life? Throughout the year, schools actively prepare for natural disasters, outbreaks, and other emergency situations. Students and parents need to be aware and learn what to do during an emergency. Every family should build an emergency kit, make a family disaster plan, and be informed about events that could affect their community. Parents, take a few extra steps to help children be prepared. Make sure they know the full name, address, and phone numbers of parents or guardians. In our high-tech world of cell phones, memorizing emergency phone numbers is very important. Include a copy of this information in their backpack. Other items to keep in their backpack include water and non-perishable snacks, a pocket-sized first aid kit, a whistle to alert others for help, and a list of allergies, medical conditions, and medications. Make sure their school and teacher have a copy, too. Be familiar with different routes and ways to travel home, like walking, taking the bus, or riding home with another student who lives nearby. Establish a secret code word with your child and whoever takes them home from school to protect against an unauthorized person picking them up. This list is a great starting point to prepare your student for the upcoming school year. Customize these steps to fit your child's capabilities and needs. Ask school administrators and teachers about emergency preparedness plans so you know what steps they are taking to keep your child safe. Many schools have guidelines on how to shelter in place during natural disasters, how to secure classrooms during an emergency lockdown, and how to teach preparedness curriculum to students. Remember, emergency preparedness is important for everyone. Children who are prepared are more confident during stressful emergency situations. By following preparedness guidelines, parents, children, and school staff can improve their safety and peace of mind. For more information on school emergency preparedness, visit cdc.gov/children/schools. To learn more about disasters and emergency preparedness, follow @CDC Emergency on Twitter or visit emergency.cdc.gov. So, let's get prepared. Have a great school year.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO. This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Good eating habits developed in childhood can last a lifetime, but getting children to eat their fruits and vegetables is a common problem. Eating them adds important nutrients, helps control weight, and reduces the risks for many serious illnesses. Children in the U.S. are eating more fruit. However, 60% of children get fewer fruits than recommended, and 93% don't get enough vegetables. Child care, schools, and school districts can help change this by meeting or exceeding federal nutrition standards for meals and snacks, including fruits and vegetables wherever food is offered, and helping children learn about and taste fruits and vegetables. At home, parents can eat a variety of fruits and vegetables with their children and provide them as snacks, even if it takes many tries. Also, parents can include their children when shopping for, growing, and preparing fruits and vegetables. To learn more, visit cdc.gov/vital signs.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
I was in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean when it happened. There was a sudden jolt and our submarine crashed on the seafloor. We were in total darkness.
That's Dr. Dejana Figueroa, a marine biologist and STEM teacher, talking about a deep sea dive she'll never forget.
It's funny, when I was a kid, I was afraid of the ocean, and there I was, 2 miles below the surface. But as a scientist, you prepare for that. Using our training and a little creativity, we fixed the sub and finished our experiments. The dive was just too important. Every dive gives us glimpses at things few people ever get to see. Glowing creatures, fiery undersea volcanoes. When we got back to the surface, I kissed the ground and called my mom, of course. But you know what? I wouldn't trade that dive for anything.
Dr. Figueroa uses her passion for STEM to discover new things and make the world a better place. She can STEM, so can you. Check out She Can STEM for more stories and inspiration. A message from the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping Progressive Radio at full power.
America's stringent system of corporate capitalism keeps carving out new depths of worker exploitation. Take Chick-fil-A, a right-wing, Atlanta-based fast food operation boasting that it follows, quote, biblically based principles. Like slavery? Well, Chick-fil-A hasn't gone quite that biblical yet, but one of its franchises recently pioneered a novel labor compensation innovation that comes close, literally paying some workers chicken feed. This outlet of the $11 billion a year chain called on area residents to staff its new drive-through express. But in lieu of wages, they were offering chicken sandwiches. Join the express team and you'd be paid 5 chicken items per shift. That worked out to less than minimum wage, plus indigestion. What we have here is one more absurd illustration that America's sanctified work ethic is a fraud, an empty promise that you'll get ahead if you just work hard enough, keep your nose to the grindstone, and stay loyal to the corporate order for life, no matter how vacuous. But the game is up, for workers across the economy are now seeking more from life than 50 years of serving the company. They're even organizing anti-workaholism groups like I Don't Want a Career, Rest is Resistance, and the NAP Ministry. But don't mistake this rebellion as mere satire by a few puckish slackers. Today's nationwide shortage of workers, from truck drivers to teachers, is not a momentary economic blip, but a defiant declaration of independence from a form of work that is life-sucking. This is Jim Hightower saying, people are not afraid of hard work, nor averse to long hours, if the task and the cause are worth both time and effort. And worth it is increasingly being measured in higher values than dollars alone, including a sense of purpose, community, respect, fairness, and fun. Howdy-ho, folks. Thanks for tuning in and sharing my weekly commentaries. Also, please join me for a live web show I host every other Tuesday, the Hightower Lowdown Happy Hour at the Chat and Chew Cafe. You can join the action live online as I chat with grassroots leaders and progressive sparklies from around the country. Go to hightowerlowdown.org/chat-and-chew to find out about upcoming guests and watch past episodes. That's hightowerlowdown.org/chat-and-chew.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1954. That was the day of the groundbreaking ceremony of what would come to be known as the greatest construction show on Earth. The show was the development of the St. Lawrence Seaway. The $1.2 billion project was a joint effort by Canada and the United States. It included the building of 7 locks and widening of canals. The completed project would allow large cargo ships to travel all the way from the Atlantic Ocean to Duluth, Minnesota. It connected cities such as Chicago and Detroit to international trade routes to the east. The project also included the construction of a 3,216-foot-long hydroelectric dam. More than 22,000 engineers, carpenters, and laborers made the project possible. These workers dredged 360 million tons of materials and laid 6 million cubic yards of concrete. The massive construction project was finished in just 5 years. England's Queen Elizabeth II attended the opening ceremonies of the finished seaway. Within the first 3 days, 168 vessels had traversed the new waterway. Jason Romano owned a trucking company that helped transport gravel to the project. He recalled, the seaway opened up the Great Lakes and brought ships to the heart of the country. And that is what makes this country great. The men who designed the project and worked with and under me are the unsung heroes. Jason's story, along with many other workers who made the project possible, were collected by Claire Parman in her book, The St. Lawrence Seaway and Power Project, an oral history of the greatest construction show on Earth. The book was released in 2009, commemorating 50 years since the completion of the massive project. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. We always begin, whether from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 58 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting a high, get this, below 90 degrees. We're supposed to be in the upper 80s. We'll see how that works out. Abundant sunshine throughout the day with winds out of the west at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Clear skies overnight with lows in the upper 50s. Winds continuing out of the west at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And then mainly sunny skies tomorrow with highs in the low 90s, low to mid 90s, which will be the case through the weekend, and then we'll be inching up into the hundreds, the low hundreds, next week. Oh my gosh. Winds tomorrow will be shifting out of the west-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Confirmed cases of coronavirus in Jackson County in the southern part of Oregon have not been updated. We stand at 489,075 confirmed cases. Deceased stands at 562. Of course, those will increase. The hospitals are full. Grass pollen is rated moderate right outside the window here at Rogue River proper. The air quality index for the region is moderate at 52 parts per million, and that daytime UV index has notched down lower to a level high, which would be level 7. Oh, well, good for us. Barometric pressure is rising at 30.06 inches. Visibility is up to 10 miles. And relative humidity is at 68%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. London is 85 degrees and sunny. Paris is 91 and sunny with a heat advisory that could impact critical infrastructure. Rome is 91 and fair with a heat advisory that could impact critical infrastructure. Kyiv is 71 degrees and cloudy. Kabul is 75 and clear. Hong Kong is 80 degrees with a light rain shower. Tokyo is 84 and partly cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 50 degrees and partly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 61 and mostly cloudy with a fog advisory on the bay and offshore. And New York, New York is 82 degrees Fahrenheit and mostly cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Adela Suleiman of the Washington Post brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. The United States is returning 30 looted antiquities to Cambodia, among them Buddhist and Hindu religious statues and ancient artifacts. The items include artifacts from the Bronze Age to the 12th century. Notable pieces being repatriated include a 10th century sandstone sculpture of the Hindu god of war Skanda, riding on a peacock, and a monumental sculpture of Ganesha, a central Hindu and Buddhist deity. Both were looted from the ancient Khmer capital, Kokare. Today, we celebrate the return of Cambodia's cultural heritage to the Cambodian people and reaffirm our commitment to reducing the illicit trafficking of art and antiquities, a lawyer said from the New York Attorney's Office. The office said the artifacts had been stolen from Cambodia as part of an organized looting network and that many were sold by antiquities dealer Douglas Latchford to collectors and museums in the United States. Latchford was a Bangkok-based dealer who was charged in 2019 with wire fraud conspiracy and other crimes related to schemes to sell looted Cambodian antiquities on the international market. Latchford died in 2020, and the indictment was dismissed. The Cambodian ambassador said plundering priceless antiquities remained a global problem, which runs much deeper than one man and can involve some of the world's most prestigious places. We are eager to welcome back home our precious cultural heritage, he said, likening it to the returning of the souls of our culture back to our people.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mes automnes, quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Mari Yamaguchi of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Nagasaki paid tribute to the victims of the U.S. atomic bombing 77 years ago on August 9th yesterday, with the mayor saying Russia's war on Ukraine showed the world that another nuclear attack is not just a worry, but a tangible and present crisis. Mayor Tomohisa Dao, in his speech at the Nagasaki Peace Park, said nuclear weapons can be used as long as they exist, and their elimination is the only way to save the future of mankind. This has shown the world that the use of nuclear weapons is not a groundless fear, but a tangible and present crisis, he said. The belief that nuclear weapons can be possessed not for actual use, but for deterrence is a fantasy, nothing more than a mere hope. As in Hiroshima, Russia and its ally Belarus were not invited to the memorial event in Nagasaki. The United States dropped the world's first atomic bomb on Hiroshima on August 6th in 1945, destroying the city and killing 140,000 people. It dropped a second bomb 3 days later on Nagasaki, killing another 70,000. Japan surrendered on August 15th, ending World War II and Japan's nearly half-century of aggression in Asia. Participants, including diplomats from nuclear states, observed a moment of silence at 11:02 a.m., the moment the bomb exploded above the southern Japanese city on August 9th of 1945. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida said even though we face a severe security environment, we must pursue the history of non-nuclear use and make Nagasaki the last place of nuclear attack. Japan renounced its own possession, production, or hosting of nuclear weapons, but as a U.S. ally, Japan hosts 50,000 American troops and is protected by the U.S. nuclear umbrella. Still, Russia's nuclear threat has prompted some hawkish lawmakers in the governing party have also proposed a possibility of nuclear sharing with the United States. Dow said discussions about nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation over the past decades had not been put into practice, and trust in the 1968 Treaty on Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons has become tenuous. We must recognize that ridding ourselves of nuclear weapons is the only realistic way of protecting the Earth and humankind's future, Dow said. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. But you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we will meet up here tomorrow, right here, in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.